Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Oh my gosh, my camera's gonna die. I hope I can make it through this video. Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Sephora. I'm a licensed attorney and law school coach, and today's video is going to be all about questions that you should ask or consider asking during your big law firm interviews. I wanted to do this video because the big law recruiting cycle has just gotten earlier and earlier and earlier, which means like you have to start preparing for this earlier and earlier and earlier, which may, because you have all the other pressures of law school and trying to do well and all that, preparing and actually doing the research or figuring out what it is you need to ask and find out from attorneys may fall to the wayside, which is understandable. So I'm going to do this video to help you guys with some questions that you should consider asking, at least questions that were important to me and questions that likewise may be important to you. So the first question that you may want to consider asking or finding out about during your big law interviews is, how does your firm assign assignments? How does your firm assign cases, right? And so over here, you may have a firm that has a strict assignment system, which essentially means they have an assigning partner or assigning person who is responsible for doling out the caseload, doling out assignments to the associates, right? And maybe that person's rotating, whatever, but you get your assignment, it is assigned to you. Perhaps you share a list of interests with the firm, with that assigning partner, and that's how you get your assignments. On the other end, you have the free market system, which is essentially where you get the assignments that you go out and ask for. So with this one, you either go out and ask partners, it's usually partners, you hear that a new case has come in, whatever, you see the partner who's working on it or whatever it may be, and you go and ask them, hey, I would love to work on this with you. Do you have space, or do you need another associate, or whatever it may be, right? And so the in-between is a mix between free market and the assignment system, where maybe some of your cases are assigned, but you still have the leeway to go out and ask for more work if you choose to do so. So this was important for me because I wanted a free market system. I wanted a free market system because I wanted to be in charge of the work that I was going to be doing. I wanted to pick the cases, the types of cases I was doing. I wanted to pick what I would be interested in. In the video where I talked about how I landed my big law firm jobs, I talked about how I was doing tons of networking. And I talked to so many people who kind of just said like, oh, I just fell into this. I just fell into civil litigation, or I just fell into IP or whatever, right? I didn't want to fall into anything. Of course, for some people it worked out, but there's also other people who they didn't want to do that. And so they just fell into it because it's what they were assigned and they were good at it. And so they just kept getting those types of assignments. And that's how they ended up saying that. I knew that I didn't want that. And I wanted to really be able to choose the types of work that I got, but also like who I worked with, of course, too, because that's like also another piece too, is like, I'll get into that in a little bit. And so that was important for me, was being at a firm where I would have autonomy to choose the type of work that I got and who I worked for. So that was always a question that I would ask. Another piece on the free market versus assignment system, I'm more outgoing and more, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but if you are more shy or reserved and you feel like you would be afraid to go out and ask for the type of work you want, then maybe the assignment system is something that is going to be beneficial for you. So that's something that's worth keeping in mind. The second question that I would consider asking is about practice groups. So different firms do this differently, and that's why it's important to ask about it. But so for some firms, you will be assigned to a specific practice group, and that is your practice group. That is who you're going to be working with. That's where all your work is going to be coming from. Like, say, for example, I'm in mergers and I'm not, but I'm saying like, say, for example, someone is in mergers and acquisitions. That is our practice group, and all their work is within that practice group. Some firms operate that way, and maybe you only get work from, let's say, banking if there's not enough work in your practice group of mergers and acquisitions, which is probably not going to happen, right? But other firms, for example, you may not be in a specific practice group per se. So like some firms, you're going to be in the general practice of litigation, or in the general practice, at least for like 1 year or so, you may do like a rotation type deal, the general practice of corporate And so let's go with the first example. If you're in the general practice of litigation, you're not only going to be doing, for example, like civil or commercial or appellate, right? You may get different opportunities from each of those different types of litigation work because you were in that litigation group generally, right? And so it's not like you're shoehorned into one practice group. And on the other side of that, like some firms, you have like a rotation system. So maybe you rotate through the different corporate or transactional opportunities. So you'll rotate through banking, you'll rotate possibly through M&A, you'll rotate through wills and trusts, or you'll get to rotate. And maybe you can stay in that rotation, or maybe you can continue to kind of get multiple opportunities from those different groups while you're in a rotation. But typically, after that rotation, you end up getting an offer from one of those practice groups or choosing to stay within one of those practice groups after that rotation, right? So my point is, different firms do it differently. And so it is something worth learning about, worth asking about. The other thing with practice groups is, I feel like so many people love to talk about big law hours and like how it's crazy and how you don't have any free time. But a lot of it actually, comes down to your practice groups. For example, and practice groups and cases that you're assigned to. So I have friends who are super, super busy right now, right? Like super, super duper busy. They have filing deadlines coming up. They've got a trial coming up, whatever. They're super busy. But then I have friends at the same firm who are chilling, okay? Who aren't that busy. And so there's an extent to where your time at the firm will ebb and will flow. There's other practice groups where there is no ebb and flow. It's just continuous, hard going, right? And so that's what I mean when it's important to ask about what is specific to the practice group that you are interested in being in. And on that same note, right, when you're talking about big law hours, so for instance, another thing that I was really interested in was going to a firm where I would have flexibility. I don't want to be in the office all day, any day. Okay. And so I wanted to be at a firm where I could work from home all the time if I wanted to. And that's, that was important to me. And that's what I ended up going with. Right. And so even when you're thinking about work dynamics, it's in terms of practice group, a specific practice group can be an early morning practice group, right? Like say like the partner or associates, whatever, early risers. And so they start working at 6 a.m. Would that be the expectation for you to also start working at 6 a.m. if you would prefer to start working at 9 a.m. and work till later in the evening, right? So again, it's one of those things where it may vary by practice group. And so also just beneficial to think about and ask about during your interview process. The other question, the third question, and I kind of mentioned it already, but it's about what's expected of you in terms of presence at the firm, in terms of dress, like everything, right? So is it expected that you're in the office every single day? Is it expected that you are dressed formally every single day, even if you're just going to be sitting in your office all day, right? That's beneficial for you to know. Like I said, I wanted a firm where there was no in-office requirement, and that I chose one that didn't have one, right? So that's another thing. So the next question is switching practice groups. So this is kind of an offshoot. So if you are in one practice group, will you be able to switch practice groups and I need to do a little bit of explaining here, right? Because sometimes the way it works is if after your summer associate position, your 2L year, your firm will give you an offer or the practice group you worked with will give you an offer to join that practice group when you return after law school graduation, right? So that's one way that a big law firm can do it. The other way is they can give you an offer to return to the firm and you will have a year to choose your practice group, right? So again, different firms do it differently. Either way, you will also want to know like, hey, will I have the opportunity to switch practice groups at any point in time? Because sometimes the answer is no, okay? Sometimes the answer is no. And I have seen instances where people who wanted to switch practice groups simply had to switch firms. they had to go to a different firm. Especially, I've seen it happen between people who were previously in corporate and wanted to make the switch over to litigation. They simply had to switch firms to make that happen. The next thing that I thought was really, really important, this was really important to me because I wanted to get substantive opportunities early in my career as an early associate, was staffing, right? And so one of the questions I always asked was, how are your assignments staffed? How does the firm staff associates to cases, to assignments, right? Because the more leanly an assignment is staffed, the more substantive opportunities you are going to have. And that was important to me. I ended up going with the firm that staffed pretty leanly because like first, and this is all also questions you should be asking when you're interviewing with these first, second, and third year associates is, what substantive opportunities have you gotten? And I was hearing like, oh, I've done a deposition, I've actually held my own trial, and not just in pro bono, but actual, like pro bono matters, of course, but also, actual client paying work. Like they're doing concrete things. Even my friends now, second and third and fourth year associates, substantive opportunities in trial, stand-up opportunities, as we like to call it, And so that was important to me, was asking, one, what substantive opportunities they've gotten and how are assignments staffed. And so that's another thing that I think is going to be beneficial because one of the things that I had heard when I was interviewing, and that she's a partner now, but she was an associate when I was going through the interview process, was telling me was that the firm she was previously at essentially treated them like glorified assistants, like they were, it wasn't as if they didn't actually get substantive opportunities. And that was one of the reasons she left that firm to switch over to the firm that I was interviewing at. And the final question that I have for this video, I don't know what number because I've given you a bunch more than I planned, is about the billable hour requirement. Oh my goodness. Okay. You can usually find a firm's billable hour requirement on the internet, like by Google, but I just always think it's beneficial to ask about it because like some good questions is, what's your billable hour requirement? Have you had any troubles hitting that billable hour requirement? What happens if you don't hit that billable hour requirement? I mean, typically what happens is you don't get your bonus, right? The end of your bonus, but also more substantively, like, are you fired? Or like, are your reviews going to be bad? I know I said that was the last one, but actually the last one is mentorship. Asking if your firm gives mentors to new associates because, learning how to navigate it and having someone who can go to bat and give you all the tea and just help you out is going to make a big, big difference, speaking from experience. And if not, and even if it does, you may still have to go out and find your own mentor or someone who's going to be willing to help you along the way. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comments below what other videos you like to see, and make sure you follow Topping the Curve on all other social media for law school coaching opportunities. And to join us in our upcoming workshop, visit toppingthecurve.com to see those opportunities. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you guys on my next one. Bye.